Lightning. We had just moved into a little ranch house in the suburbs. Storybook neighborhood, quiet, friendly neighbors, picket fences, the whole 9 yards. Suffice it to say that this was supposed to be a new start for me, a recently single dad, and my 3-year-old son. A time to move on from the previous year's drama and stress. I viewed the thunderstorm as a metaphor for this fresh start, one last show of theatrics before the dirt and grime of the past would be washed away. My son loved it anyway, even with the power out. It was the first big storm he'd ever seen. Flashes of lightning flooded the bare rooms of our house, imparting unpacked boxes with long creeping shadows, and he jumped and squealed as the thunder boomed. It was well past his bedtime before he'd finally settled down enough to go to sleep. The next morning I found him awake in bed and smiling. I watched the lightning at my window, he proudly announced. A few mornings later, he told me the same thing. "You're silly," I said. "It didn't storm last night, you were only dreaming." "Oh." He seemed somewhat disheartened. I ruffled his hair and told him not to worry, there should be another storm soon. Then it became a pattern. He would tell me how he watched the lightning outside his window at least twice a week, despite there being no storms. Recurring dreams of that first memorable thunderstorm, I figured. It's easy to hate myself in hindsight. Everybody assures me there's nothing I could have done, no way I could have known. But I'm supposed to be the guardian of my child, and these are useless words of comfort. I constantly relive that morning, making my coffee, pouring milk over my cereal, and picking up the newspaper to read about the pedophile local authorities had just arrested. It was front-page stuff. Apparently this guy would select a young target, usually a boy, stake out their house for a while, and take flash photos of them through their window while they slept. Sometimes he did more. My stomach sank as the connection was made. At the time, it was merely something from a child's imagination. In retrospect, it is the scariest thing I've ever heard. About a week before the predator was caught, my son came up to me in his pajamas. "Guess what?" he asked. "What?" "No more lightning at my window." I played along. "Oh, that's nice, it finally died down, huh?" "No. Now it's in my closet. I've yet to see the photos police have collected."
Silent night. Back in February we had record-breaking snowfall around here. Every night the silence of the frozen world was broken by the coyotes, hunting for hidden prey in the snow. As usual, I could hear them howling and searching. Suddenly it got silent. Like that, thick, heavy, ear-ringing silence. Then the sounds of coyotes yelping and snarling. Not just one, but all of them. The commotion filled the air. It lasted about 5 minutes. My neighbors and I have since discussed it. We all heard it. No one ever found signs of the fight in the snow. No remains. I haven't heard a coyote since that night. Not a single yip or anything to this day. The dogs in the area that are out at night stay silent. My dogs inside the house sometimes look out the large sliding door to the backyard and back away slightly. I'd love to hear the sound of a coyote again.
I got one from a few months back when doing a month of training in Louisiana. Be me in a army spending a few weeks sucking in the Louisiana woods. Get put in charge of a listening/observation post with 2 other guys about an hour before dark, settling in for the night, give sectors, stage gear for quick exfil in case of contact, eat dinner, take piss etc. I am on the 3 o'clock, just finished eating as darkness was falling, throw my MRE trash at a tree 10 meters or so away and put on my NVGs. We sit there for maybe a good hour before we start hearing shit moving around us through the brush, hear a snarl and tactically shit myself as something fast and hairless with a snub face and long torso runs maybe 3 feet past me to my trash, looks at me as I jump up and yell. It growls. Ugliest thing I ever seen, looked like a skinned cat but the size of a German shepherd. Go for my rifle, lol blanks, but why not? Look back up and it's gone. Receive contact for giving away position by yelling and run back to our platoon. Do not sleep that night. I swear it was unlike any animal I have ever seen. Fucking terrifying. Pic related kind of what it looked like, but it sprinted real weird, almost like an alligator real close to the ground.
Have posted this a couple times. I was on a cross-country road trip with a colleague. We were driving through West Texas, on a major highway. In the area where we were, even the major highway was pretty desolate. There had been a truck stop or gas station about every 100 miles, and every one of them was solitary with no other buildings in sight. Crap, I cut it wrong. These weren't really towns, the exits, just places to get more gas to get to the next gas station. It was pretty late at night, and she had been driving for like 4 hours. I usually can drive for about 8 before I'm tired out. I go on frequent road trips, but she could only manage 4 or 5 before it was my turn again. We were also getting low on gas, at about a quarter tank, and you learn from road travel to fill up when you get the chance. So she was looking for a gas station as we drove along. It's really corny, but we were talking about fate, and destiny, and some other weird shit at the time. That kind of conversation gets me keyed up and worried, so I was trying to change the subject. She took an exit while we were talking, and I got out my coffee mug so I could fill up for my turn driving. We pulled into a typical Nowhereville gas station, just the station and a trailer out back. I assumed, thinking back, it was probably where the people who owned it lived. There was another car parked in front of the doors off to one side.
3/4 you bastards. We got out, still talking, and walked up to the double doors, each of us grabbing a door handle. The doors were locked. I turned and looked around to see if there was a sign. Sometimes places will put up a "back in 5 minutes, and noticed several things in succession. The coffee maker inside was halfway done brewing a fresh pot of coffee. The monitors that showed the store were visible from outside, where we were, but all of them were showing static, and there was a splash of bright red on the door in the back of the place, which was closed. I suddenly realized I was looking at a huge streak of blood, with handprints in it. Every hair on my neck stood up. My friend began shaking the door. Velling, "We need to get gas," but I had already turned and walked away from the doors. "We have to leave." Now I grabbed her arm and started propelling her back to the car. Now I noticed the other car in the lot. It had no plates. It was dingy and had dents. There was an empty gun rack in the window of it. I ran to the car, dragging her with me. She seemed to take forever to open her door and get in. She had the keys still. The whole time she kept saying, "But we need gas." While I tried to explain to her, "There's blood in there." Blood. After what seemed like a year, she pulled the car out when we were backing up. I saw through the windows that the back door in the gas station was opening. We had pulled away before anyone came out, thankfully. I freaked out until we were 20 miles down the highway. I tried to call police but had no signal. I didn't get a phone signal until we had driven about 40 miles and got to a truck stop. Again, not in a town, just a building on its own in the middle of nothingness. I called the cops. They thanked me, and I never heard anything more about it. To this day I feel like if I hadn't freaked out, we probably would have met the robber or whoever was in the back room of the place. I also wish I had been able to find out what the hell had happened there. It was a Chevron station, somewhere in the western part of TX, at least, within about 100 miles or so of the signs for those places, on RT10. Never have heard back. This all happened in 2002. Pick unrelated.
Be me, go on picnic with family outside of Huancayo, Peru. We used to live there, go to foggy area, pretty chill day, eat our lunch and decide to explore the local mountainside or up by then, notice all the little caves dotting the mountainside, spend next 3 hours looking through all the caves, most are super shallow and nothing really of interest, we save the big cave for last, we all head in and notice a worn path slightly up the side, take it and look over, fucking skeleton is right there, the head is severed and the rest of the body is scattered all around, my sister takes her hat off and snaps a pic of the skelly, friend with us claims it was a young woman, I give it was true, spend rest of the day spooked. Here's the actual mountain.
Long while back, about 16 sodden have sleep paralysis, experienced the shadow man girl in a white dress, fearful experiences and each time seems to be worse, having a good day, but seem to get more tense and paranoid over nothing as it gets closer to bedtime. Night comes, the moon is in full display, it's like the entirety of the world outside my room is inverted. Dark as shit, but the moonlight is almost illuminating, as bright as the sun, stints of moonlight beaming through blinds, leaving a pattern along my bed and a few feet into the side of it. Asleep in bed I get the oddest feeling of dread, not necessarily a primal fear of danger but more of a sickening feeling of inevitability, like knowing you're next for a class presentation off head between tuples, have fan off beside dresser, full blast, room is full of white noise, nice and cool, cozy under covers and pillows. Laying on side curled up. This is usually what I do to avoid sleep paralysis. There's still a chance every time I sleep, but when I sleep like this is maybe a 1 in 10 chance. Pun easily drift to sleep, wake up with that telezy numbness of paralysis, feel heavy, weak. My fan is completely turned off, ready. At this point I'm terrified. I've never gone through sleep paralysis without the buzz of the fan to drown out the nightmarish chess my mind would create in its state of panic. Have no clue why fan is of, but it's of now, and managed to get on top of the pillows I was safely nestled in when festless sleep. Only solace have in the coming moments of terror is the blankets covering me up to my neck. Wait for what feels like minutes until I see something she or more unfurl from the recess of my desk. Like a child, It looked like in the darkness it was holed up and watching me with its feet planted in front of it and its head and body in between its knees, with its hands rested top of the legs clasped together by the fingers. As it creeps out from under the desk, I watch it stretch its limbs out to a sprawl. It was of a large girth, but had gonilla-like limbs, arms long enough to touch its toes without even as much as leaning over. As moved away from the faint lights of my powered-off PC, I could see the moonlight pattern warp and ride over as it drew closer. Finally it stopped right next to my bed, even more horrifying now that it was before it was bare I can fram, and covered in a thick fur. Though the area its eyes were too recessed to even see where it began and ended in the dark. SS brow was protruding down into a grimace. Its mouth was twisted and gnarled, and puckered shut and came out to a dog's snout. It sat down in the same childish way, big enough to kneel and still look down at me. At this point I was too struck with sheer horror to even process fear. I was so inundated with processing what I was looking at. It was nothing like the other nightmare entities. Felt alive, visceral, like it was actually there. Its blank eyes almost lit up when it craned its head down to my face. I could see those two predatory orbs stare through my shell from the darkness of its eye sockets. Made no noise, no breathing. The room was completely silent. It's like it was savoring the dead quiet, so it could focus in on the pounding of my heart and the hastening of my breathing. Its entire head seemed to wobble as it opened its mouth to speak, less like the fluid motion of speech, but violent muscle spasms causing the shadowy, pallid modicum agape and snap shut. But sinister voice croaked out at me, "She's a keeper, pop them, tidy them, have they called? If you want it, it's yours, count it, it's all there." Not necessarily to me every time. It spoke in broken sentences, non sequitur statements, often sometimes random bouts of whispering humidly of impending doom and disaster.
For some reason I can't even shut my eyes, it just keeps staring. Almost feel like my purchase of sanity is sleeping. It just keeps talking every now and then, never allowing respite from its gaze. Every now and then it stops mumbling and jing me that macabre smile to grimace and speak more maddening, prophetic phrases. There's greater than a situation there. Wailing is only a compromise, all that you could end this now. Hear him? The mother is a victim of it, cowering and broken. Finally feel some modicum of strength wash over me. Sap my eyes shut, try and calm myself and wish my mind out of it. At this point I'm on the precipice of having a heart attack. Leave the man to his work. TM comfortable here. Can almost feel it draw closer. Aussie desperately keep my eyes shut like a child hiding from imaginary creatures. Its final words stick with me more than anything for some reason. Like this time, it was truly talking clearly towards me. The reality of it all would be much worse. Sheer the buzz of the fans come back in as slowly begin to open my eyes. Nothing is in the room. Nearly morning time. 5 a.m. Jump out of bed. Walk outside in a t-shirt and shorts in 40-degree weather. Swalk aimlessly until maybe 11 in the morning. Completely dazed. Come home after a while and continue on vang in fear. Haven't seen it in 6 years since then, but never forget its face or its words. Even if I don't remember everything I said, it's in there, somewhere back in my head.
Parapsycholophag performing an experiment. I'll try to be less specific this time. Open MS Paint or equivalent and select X4 pencil. Draw a bird facing left. It has a crest on his head. It is red and has 3 spikes. Its beak should be slightly curved, but straight, with a straight line dividing the parts of the beak and another straight line dividing the beak from the rest of the head. Its eyes must be completely black. It has a retracted wing, small tail, 2 legs, with 3 feet each one. It has 2 arms, yes, wings and arms, right or back. One is pouring a bottle of ketchup on a bun being held by the left, front, hand. Ketchup should be red. The regular red from Windows 7 MS Paint. Same with crest. Paint the bird light blue, the MS Paint one. Paint its beak yellow, the MS Paint one too. Post it.
That's way too much shit to do. Fuck you up. Here you go. There, faggot.
No personal stuff? Fuck you, op. I'm a creative son, bitch. Instructions too vague. My dick got stuck in the ceiling.
I noticed a big problem with your experiment is that it simple does not connect to the young people anymore. Being a well-mannered, well-meaning young man that I am, I immediately jumped onto that, proposing a viable solution. I amped the shtick. Made it more appropriate for today's audiences. Gave it a more woe approach. Named him ZB, even outfitted him a trademark phrase, kids can parrot around, birds to word on the street. He's a crime-fighting, RA diacative blue chicken with 3 feet who fights alongside his free-spirited, precocious teen sidekicks. Unfortunately for that, I had to drop the ketchup bottle, leaving only the ketchup on the bun as sort of an in-joke throwback reference. Times have changed.
DFW humanity is the laughingstock of the universe. DFW we got sectioned off into our own little autism zone. DFW eyes periodically visit to check if we haven't fucked shit up somehow or to laugh at the dumb shit we do. Earth is a penal planet. Earth is basically a huge Australia. Alien race is smarter and much more technologically advanced than us, but our height and strength is far superior to their 3 feet height and oversized heads. We keck their alien bitches and they force us to a penal colony in the Milky Way galaxy. Aliens mock us but secretly, their wives abduct us and fuck cause of our superior dicks.
I just got done playing one of the most scariest video games ever. Now hear me out before saying, oh he's probably just a fag that gets scared of everything. I don't get scared of video games or movies. I've played many survival horror games and seen many horror movies in my day. The only thing to make me just a tiny bit scared were some parts of Penumbra and Condemned. Everything else was just boring. This game was different. Very different. You aren't given any sort of backstory to the game at all. As soon as you press play it throws you right into the game. However, I was able to piece together what the story basically is through finally beating this little brick shitter. Apparently you're a madman. We're never given the name but you can guess at what is if you pay attention to the title screen. For some reason you escaped from whatever mental hospital room you were hiding in. Now, the very horrid state of your mind has transformed the halls of the hospital into nothing but a pitch-black maze with the only light being the walls, which glow a deathly blue. Your character is apparently some type of mad cannibal that you can barely control. You can force him to turn corners in the creepy hallway but not much else can be done. Your character seems to grab anything and try to eat it. Whatever is in front of him he throws it into his mouth and munches it down. While playing the game you're being chased by 4 hideous and fucking scary ghost monsters. You cannot hurt that at all, and to come even close to one is an instant death in which the ghost latches onto you and rips you inside out, all while you hear the horrible deadening noise of your body being torn. You can however, eat this odd objects hidden in the maze. After which your character goes into an even more unstable state. You can literally eat the ghost monsters. Your character runs right up to them and devours them, only leaving their eyes. There isn't many words to describe how horrific and terrifying this game is, and I don't want to spoil the surprises for you. Just go ahead and try it for yourself. Google the word Pac-Man. You'll find it on the first search.
We're getting off topic with religious bullshit. Look, in the creation of Adam and Eve God made them pure and without the ability to know right from wrong. This is why they felt no shame and were naked. This is why the tree is called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So, God, a perfect being created an imperfect creature, who didn't understand that disobeying is wrong. He also can see the future, because he is God. Still, he is shocked and punishes Adam and Eve for eating from the tree. It's like programming a robot and telling the robot to do something it's not programmed to do. But you know it can't and you know it won't listen because you can also see the future. Point is, God is bullshit and completely irrelevant to this conversation. This is distracting from the reptilians.
Fun fact, the planet that the reptilians are supposed to have come from supposedly orbits the star Alpha Draconis, a draw. A draw is a spectral type-OL star. 1. The A0 designation indicates that the star has a surface temperature around the 10,000 K mark, almost twice that of the Sun, which by Wien's law correlates to a peak emission wavelength of -290 nanometers, well into the ultraviolet. 2. The third designation indicates a draw is also a giant star. In fact it has a mass of about 3.9 m, solar masses. The more massive a star, the shorter its lifespan. Giant stars quickly diverge off of the main sequence. A draw would only have stayed on the MS for about 340 million years. Successive sequences of its lifespan would be exponentially shorter. A draw is already at the point where it's begun burning helium, but has not proceeded to the next phase, which means it's probably not much older than 350 to 400 million years old. 3. A draw also has a companion star, a low-mass dwarf with a relatively short orbital period, less than 2 months. This means that the companion swings in very close on each revolution about a draw. So what does this all mean? 3. Means it's very unlikely that any planets formed in this system. Long-period binaries like Alpha Centauri AB, which we have already found exoplanet candidates orbiting around, have stable regions where planets could form. Any system around a draw would have to survive having an object roughly 200 to 300 times the mass of Jupiter plowing through the system every 2 months. 2. Means that even if a planet somehow managed to form in the system, it would be far too young to have even cooled, let alone developed life, let alone developed intelligent, spacefaring life. 1. Means that any planets that did somehow miraculously develop in the system and miraculously cooled and developed life in 1/100th the time it took Earth to would have been completely sterilized by the primary star's constant UV emissions. You just typed a lengthy and scientific rebuttal to a thread about sentient star lizards, dude. You're goddamned right I did.
Reposted from an old thread. I used to know what you might call that kid in middle school. He always smelled like he shit himself and wore the same clothes for fucking weeks on end. That is, his wardrobe consisted exclusively of real run-of-the-mill, generic pajamas. The kind where it's a completely solid color, the shirt buttons up and has a pocket for some reason and there's a matching pair of pants. He wore that to school and he wouldn't take the fuckers off until they were fucking made of stains and smelled so bad that he actually noticed. He was your typical chubby, long-haired greasy neckbeard, except it was the 7th grade and he couldn't grow facial hair. Actually, that's not entirely true. He grew a really fucking weird, thin mustache that was composed of only the barest number of hairs. But his upper lip always looked wet, so you couldn't help but notice that it was there. Anyways, he liked to bill himself as a video game programmer. The truth was he could only program terrible ass text adventures in Visual Basic, and it was a damn miracle if they last more than 3 minutes and weren't easy as shit. He brought these fucking retarded games into school every other week, burned to blank CD-ROMs, and he'd ask everyone to play them in the computer lab. They were always really retarded. You're completely predictable. You wake up in a dark cell or an alien spaceship or in a forest, kind of deal. Except for one he brought in that was different. That's not to say it was actually good, or even really an actual fucking game to be frank. Just that it stood out among his other releases. This one, he called Happy Mommy. And I'm the sorry sack of shit he insisted should play it.
It started out in the usual command prompt window his games always had, with a pointless ass beginning text asking me to type go to begin the game. Except this time when I typed go it didn't start out in typical text adventure style telling me I woke up somewhere and there's a useful item in the room and 4 directions. This time, it started out saying happy mommy one day gone just like that, in all lowercase, as was standard fare in this fucking weirdo's dumbass games. I wasn't really sure what the fuck to do at this point so I asked him and he told me to type in mommy. So that's what I did and it returned, happy mommy 2 day gone again, just like that, the S missing after day and everything. I didn't really know what else to do so I typed in mommy again. This time I got, happy mommy 3 day gone now. I tried to type mommy again, but it didn't work this time, so I asked him what the hell I'm supposed to do now and he said to type feel good. So I did and I got, happy mommy 4 day gone happy mommy feel good. And then it just closed itself. I went on with the rest of my day, completely fucking confused at what the shit he made me play. He came to school the next day, and that is the last time I ever saw him. Really spooky ending, I guess? The whole class was obviously wondering what happened to him, and all the teachers made it seem real mysterious and creepy because they were real insistent that we don't talk fucking about it. No one found out what the hell happened for the rest of our entire school, from 8th grade to high school graduation, outside of the obviously bullshit rumors. Years later, long after I was a grown adult, I came back into contact with one of my middle school teachers and we chatted up a bit about the good old days and all the retarded assholes that went to my middle school. I guess because I was an adult he felt more comfortable around me, even if he was still way older than me, so I asked him what the hell ever happened to that kid. Now, this next part, I swear to God, is not made up. Apparently, over the week before he disappeared, this kid's mom had fucking hanged herself. And since he was an only child and she was raising him on her own, and no one in their neighborhood really knew them, no one fucking knew about it and the kid just kept going to school and coming home to her corpse for 5 days before someone took notice of this and looked into it. And, according to this particular teacher, this kid, I shit you the fuck not, had been fucking his mom's corpse almost the entire time. I was never actually told what happened to him after Child Protective Services took him away, and I'm not sure anyone knows.
OK/X/ I've been wanting to tell you this for a while. For some background, I work in a petrol station located on the highway. Mostly night shifts, 3 p.m. to midnight, so I'm used to the weird, the creepy and the downright paranormal. But this, normal shift, people coming and going, it's about 7, Things are dark and story slowing down a bit. Behind console area, look to my left and lock eyes, not that I could mind you, with a woman? Frail, thin, elderly, with wrinkled skin and giant fly-eyed sunglasses on, that cover half her face. Immediately get the jitters from her. She walks slowly to the door. I had to manually make it open to let her in as the auto doors didn't pick her up. Makes her way to the console, stares at me, can't tell, still wearing those creepy sunnies. You come outside and take a look at my car. I think something's wrong. Voice is soft in volume but deep and resonating, like I felt it more than I heard it. Decline. Explain policy with leaving as only staff on site. Okay then. She walks off to the toilet. Now here's where alarms bells starting going off, serving other customers, stragglers here and there. She comes out of the bathroom after 5 minutes, walks over to me again. There's no toilet paper, could you come get me some? Alarm bells. Something in my head says not to go out there. Get some staff toilet paper from behind console. Here you go ma'am. Her demeanor is sour, or as far as I can tell with those fucking sunnies. Okay. She walks back into the toilet. About another 5 minutes she walks back out, and wanders around the shop. I watch her and notice she flicks her head in my direction every now and then, like scanning me. She walks to coffee machine, then calls out to me. Her voice is louder this time, but it feels more like a knife this time, shrill and freezing. There's no milk in here, can you replace it? I'd like a coffee. I know I should do it, but fuck every something is fucking up. Alarm in my body and brain was screaming not to. Decline and say I can't leave the console at this hour of the night. She gets visibly annoyed, saying how shitty my customer service is. She threatens to contact my manager if I don't come out and change the milk. Decline and apologize, even off manager's number. She tries 3 more times to get me out over the next 20 minutes, finally gives up and walks off, glaring at me through the windows as she rounds the shop out of sight. Rest of shift goes by without a hitch, no creepy things, surprisingly mellow and normal shift. Still have sense of dread in my stomach. Swap over and leave at 12:30 a.m. Walking to my car about 50 meters in the parking lot. As I get closer, the fucking glasses, scarf and gloves she was wearing around folded neatly, the glasses resting on top, in a pile on the ground by my driver's side door. Look around, sense of dread intensifying. Quick as a flash I unlock my car, jump in and lock it again. No time to relax, start car, and gun it out of there. Never been so fearful in my life. That sense of dread never left. I got home and needed a few drinks before I could loosen up enough to even consider sleep.
Local community college has some kind of druid, Wiccan club thing. Read in local paper that property owners are finding makeshift altars and other Satan shit on their land. Whatever, I don't care as long as they stay off my property. Fast forward 1 week. They forgot to stay off my property. See bonfire a ways past the tree line. Faint chanting carries over on the wind. Glance to corner. Tabard and sugarloaf helm from my 10 fair days. I shall purge the heretics with holy light. Stop myself. My god of peace might not be enough if they've thought to bring a god of war. I must become the hunt. Strip down to my skiwis. Slather my body with mud. Roll in underbrush, picking up debris like in germophilic katamari. I am one with the wilds. Grab recurve and some arrows before I venture beyond the pines. Reach the edge of a clearing. See tents, and an altar at the base of a tree near the center. Tents are circled around a cooking fire, with an even larger fire near the altar. Disgusting tumors marring this sacred spot. Interlopers are bedding down for the night. Watch for a few hours while I devise a plan. Go out and kill a coyote, skin and gut it near my own encampment. 0100 hours. Steal into the clearing like a ghost, carrying coyote entrails. Leave it on their altar as a warning. Next morning, warlocks rise to find intestines coiled on top of their summoning platform. Watch and listen from my hiding spot. They think some forest spirit did it. Fools, there are no forest spirits. There is only I, the forest. Night falls, wizards slumber. Leave severed coyote head mounted on a spike in the center of their camp. Skin peeled away to reveal the flesh beneath. Hogwarts spring break is officially cancelled? No, magic monts think they're powerful enough to withstand my onslaught. Continue with their rituals. I hear them talking about summoning something spooky a few days from now. Lie low and wait. The forest is patient. I am the forest. I am patient. The eve of the final day arrives. The artificers have erected barriers, both physical and arcane. Nothing can stop the wilds from reclaiming its lands. Wait until Betty by time for little heretics. Scale their feeble rock walls, ripe coyote corpse in tow. Pass through force fields because magic don't reel. Arrive at altar. Now comes my true test. I must scale this tree while carrying a dead, headless yote at the same time. Get halfway up. Branch creaks under my foot. See a light flash on in a tent. Grandfather oak. Protect me in my time of need. False alarm. Someone just had to use the little cultist's room. Wait for interloper to finish up. Then continue my sacred work. Get in a comfortable spot above their summoning circle and wait for morning. I stay focused all through the night. Clad merely in brush and coyote fur. Brother Coyote's skin keeps me warm. His face hides mine. His corpse cannot speak but still tells me everything there is to know. Dawn of the final day. Cultists have assembled underneath me. Their presence has gone from being a nuisance to an insult. A spit in the face to myself and my dominion. The ritual is underway. Now is your time. Brother Coyote, headless coyote corpse crashes through the tree's branches, landing squarely in the middle of the unholy congregation with a satisfying splat. Their shock is nothing compared to the fear that will soon come after. Jump down from my treetop hideaway with a primal shriek. As I fall, I have an epiphany. This ultimate evil is just a bunch of college kids. I am just a fat sweaty guy covered in 1,000 justifications for tetanus and rabies shots. Fortunately, the trespassers do not know this. To them, I am the forest, and the forest is unhappy. The collegiates scatter. As I give chase, I herd them in the direction of civilization. The forest is merciful. Also, dead wizards harm property values. One girl at the back of the group trips. Her friends leave her for dead. She screams for help. Silence. Your band of criminals have angered my subjects. As I mention my subjects, I gesture to the tree surrounding us. With perfect timing, a gust of wind rattles their branches menacingly. The girl pleads with me, see criminals? Please, I don't know what you're talking about. We're just druids. Mel Brooks pokes his head out of a gopher hole. Funny, she doesn't look druish. Yes. Almost as spooky as the gay orgy one. Holy shit, that was excellent. I hope someone screen caps this one, so I can keck one last time before the skinwalker tears me apart.
I am the manager of a small apartment complex in the downtown area of a relevant city. I have seen a lot of messed up stuff over the last 3 years, like one of those cat ladies you only hear about in folklore. She died and they had to have animal control take away like 30 cats. I swear to God I had no idea she had that many. I thought she had like maybe 2 or 3. Anyway, last summer I had another tenant who was even more fucked in the head. I can only tell you my half of this story, which I assure you is fucked up enough as it is. So I get a call while I'm at a bar late Friday night from one of my tenants. Apparently they were alarmed at a decaying odor emanating from the unit next to theirs. I knew the guy living in it. He was really old, so my first thought is the guy had died or something and the smell was his body. Morbid, I know. I was too drunk to drive, so I had a friend give me a ride back to my place. I asked my friend if he wanted to come with me to check on the guy, and he basically told me to fuck off and that he didn't want to see a dead body. I thought, who doesn't want to see a dead body? I guess he wasn't as drunk as I was. I told him to wait in the car for a few minutes, which he agreed to. Looking back on it, I really should have made him come with me. So I go up to the guy's door and knock a few times, yell, "Mr. Sherman, are you okay? I'm coming in to check on you." That's not his real name, obviously. Of course, I get no response, so I unlock his door and head on in. The smell hit my sinuses like a brick in the face. I've gutted moose before, so I know a bad smell when I smell it. This was... well, it was about the same smell, really. That is to say, it smelled more than enough for me to believe there was a dead body somewhere in there. Still, I had to make sure before I called the police. I didn't want to call them in on a week-old pot roast, or because the refrigerator was left open or something. So I went about exploring the apartment. I knew the layout already. Most of the units are the same, so I began to search the apartment room by room whilst holding my t-shirt over my face to keep myself from gagging. The living room, the first room you see when you enter, was surprisingly neat and clean. There were a bunch of books on the coffee table lined up in a neat stack, and the telephone was on the cabinet by the wall where it should be. Then I looked at the corner and reflexively let out a shit. And backed up. There was a dog staring at me. It looked like a little black terrier, the Scotty kind. It wasn't growling or anything, so thought he was just scared, then started laughing at myself for being afraid of it. It still wasn't moving. I was a little creeped out by how much time had passed and it still wasn't moving. I thought, nah, couldn't be, but sure enough, it was stuffed. The dude had a stuffed Scottish terrier in his living room. Weird. I was still in a good mood at this point, had to chuckle to myself over getting afraid of a stuffed dog. I turned to my left and walked into the kitchen/kitchenette. The kitchen was a little bit messy. I could tell someone actually used this part of the apartment. There were just a couple knives in the sink, and the counter had some crumbs on it and stuff. I opened the refrigerator up, hoping to God that was where the smell was coming from. Nope, the refrigerator was completely empty. It looked like the guy hardly even used the apartment. There were almost no personal belongings in the living room or kitchen except for a couple plates that came with the place, and the weird-ass stuffed dog in the living room. So I went back into the living room and holy shit, the dog had moved. Actually, it didn't. There was a second dog behind the couch that I hadn't noticed the first time. Still, it almost gave me a heart attack. This weirdo guy had two stuffed dogs in his living room, both watching in different directions. The second dog was not a terrier, by the way. It was a little Shih Tzu or some long-haired little foo-foo dog. I don't know what they're all called. Needless to say, I was WTFing pretty hard at this point, and my heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. Anyway, I worked myself up a bit and went down the hallway and checked the closet. Nope, empty. The smell was definitely getting stronger now. Next up was the first bedroom. The smell wasn't so strong in there, so I didn't think I was going to find anything. I should probably point out by now that I had turned on all the lights in the place. I wasn't retarded going around with a flashlight or something. The neighborhood is not so good around here, so I'm always on guard for people jumping out and attacking me at night. So I flick on the light in the bedroom, and it's pretty fucked up. The mattress had been taken off of the bed, and the sheets were all torn up. There were a shitload of holes and scratches in the wall, which were at chest level, so they were most likely from punching and or scraping with a knife or something. Most disturbingly, there was a shitload of red stains on the carpet. They looked a lot like wine stains. Remember, I was drunk, so blood was not the first thing to pop in my mind. It actually was blood. I was an idiot. All I remember thinking at this point is, forget about the deposit, this guy is going to get charged out the ass. The whole experience of being in this apartment was starting to get at me though. Every room I went into I was half expecting to find a dead body, so I just wanted to find the source of that smell, then get the fuck out of there. So I went into the bathroom and there was a fur carpet in there. Except it wasn't a carpet, it was like 20 different little furs all laid out on the floor. They were mostly brown and black, but there were a couple white ones. I couldn't tell if they smelled bad, but they were definitely not the main source. I went down the hall to the second bedroom, timidly muttering stuff like, "Mr. Sherman, are you in here?" I started out in a good mood, but after getting startled that hard twice in a row, my adrenaline was going. Shit felt like a horror movie. Anyway, I went into the bedroom and sure enough, there was a dead body. He was lying face down on his bed with his knees on the floor and his pants off, ass bare, and pointed straight at the doorway, at me. Anyway, I got the fuck out at that point and told my friend in the car what I saw. Of course, he didn't believe me until the police I called showed up. I never got to see the worst part. One of the cops told me about it. Apparently this dude was a veterinarian and had been taking home all the dead bodies of animals he'd put down. He had made a fetish of skinning them all and just throwing the skinned bodies into the tub in the second bathroom. I guess the first bathroom was too good for that, so that's where he kept the furs. The worst of the worst part is that the guy died from a heart attack while jerking it with the intestines of one of the animals. Apparently he had made a fetish of using their guts as jerk-off sleeves and just let them pile up in the bathtub after he was done with them. In the end, the deposit, $500, didn't begin to cover the damage to the apartment, let alone the emotional damage he did to the apartment manager, me. Yup, I hate my job.
Be biologist, be doing biologist shit. Buddies are setting cam traps on trees while I'm at camp trying to get a fire going. Fire won't catch. Bill sits next to me. Feels cold, but since everything was cold, never cared about it. This fucking lint won't make a spark. Shitty fuck equipment. Where's Sam with the lighter? Keep complaining for a while. Realize the person next to me isn't talking. Feel a slight chill creeping up my spine. Slowly look ahead. Can see Sam's and Bill's flashlights in the woods ahead. Who the fuck is sitting next to me? Turn around. All I see is something black. Nope. Wake up next day. Sam and Bill are standing on top of me, white as milk. I'm laying in the middle of the ground a little bit away from the camp. They said they heard screaming, and when they came I was nowhere to be seen. Had spent the whole night looking for me, shouting, yelling. All they got in response was a deep grunt. Try to get up, pain everywhere. MFW, this is what I look like when they tore my shirt off. MFWI had torn both my pectoralis, as if trying to push/fight something away, to the point where the muscle tore, and broken 5 ribs and a clavicle. MFWI I'm never doing field trip work again. MFW every night I nope at the slightest feel of something brushing against me. Where were you when this happened? Fort Campbell, Tennessee.
Ft. Campbell, Tennessee. This figure was captured on video in the same area by YouTube user James Jones. First named it Horned Man, but it could be just a bunch of trees. Now that you told your story, it made me think of it. Coincidence? Or do we have a real thing here? If it was a bear, you wouldn't be here to post that story, just saying.
Here's a story from when I was a kid, not that scary, but it at least gave me some creeps as a kid. Be me, 4 or 5 years old, grow up on the countryside, maybe 5 or 6 houses in the area, a small town 3 to 4 kilometers away, out playing with my wooden sword in a field near my house, see something/someone moving around in a ditch. Being a naive kid, I walk up to him/it, he's big and covered with black fur, he looks kinda like Sully from Monsters Incorporated, but this was way before the movie came out. Try to talk to him but he just growls at me, eggs my sword from me, then he bolts and runs away along the ditch, crying like a bitch. JPEG. Later that night, sitting at dinner table with Dad, he asks me what I've done today. I tell him that I made a new friend. Well, isn't that fun? What's his name? I don't know, he didn't tell me. Fast forward a couple of days, keep seeing him almost everywhere I go, as long as it's close to a ditch. He never walks anywhere but in ditches. Muster up courage to ask him what his name is. He tells me that I can call him Dintan. He tells me that he hates children and that he doesn't want to talk to me. I don't remember much of this, but my dad told me about how I always talked about Dintan with him. According to 4 to 6-year-old me, he was mean and angry all the time. I was scared of him but also felt sorry for him. And he has told me about the stories that I told him back then when I was a little kid. Will Kant. If anyone wants.
Part 1. Be at daycare, 5-ish years old. All the kids ask each other if they believe in Santa, the Tooth Fairy, Jesus, etc. Tell them that I don't believe in any of them but I believe in Dintan. I had said. I started telling the other kids about Dintan. Some of them start to cry. The kindergarten lady calls my parents to tell them that I intentionally scare the other children. Part 2. Be almost 6. Walk with best friends to the kiosk in town. They're 2 and 3 years older than me. We buy 1 ice cream each and some candy, then we walk home. They decide to stay in town at a friend's house. I don't know him, so I decide to walk home alone. Eventually I pass a small playground next to where I live, see Dintan in a ditch by the side of the road. He jumps out and throws my ice cream on the ground and laughs. Qt waterworks. GIF. I ask why he did it. He told me that he likes to make children cry. He then took the ice cream stick from the ice cream and said that it was his keepsake. Part 3. Be 6 or 7. Tell my mom that we must start putting coffee beans on the front stairs. He asks me why. I say that Dintan loves coffee and that he has told me that he often sneaks into our kitchen when everyone is asleep to eat our coffee beans. Mom and Dad are obviously concerned and start locking the front door. They say that I can't talk to Dintan anymore and that I should ignore him if I saw him again. Fast forward maybe 3 months. Driving to the city to visit my uncle, I'll point to an old stone bridge and exclaim, "Mom! That's Dintan's house." My mom thought that it would be fun if we explored the bridge since none of us had been there before. Walked down the small road to the bridge and then we walked under the bridge. There I found 20+ ice cream sticks. My mom was a little superstitious and wanted us to return to the car as quick as possible. Okay, final part. Could write more but this is what I had pre-typed. When I was 7 my family moved to Portugal for 7 months. Forget entirely about Dintan and never talk about him to anyone. We had planned on living there for 1+ years but my grandma was diagnosed with cancer so we moved back. Walked through the woods down a small trail that led to my grandma's house. See Dintan a couple of meters down the trail. He's really skinny now. He looks like Doot covered with fur, like a stray dog. Tell him that if he's going to be mean he can go away. He looks sad, then angry and then he just goes away. See him a few more times after the day. Not afraid of him anymore. He's not the big scary monster from my childhood. He looks weak and sick. Dintan told me that since our house had stood empty, he hadn't eaten for 7 months. He also told me that he'd miss me. Greater than told him to go away. Greater than I was busy being sad for my grandmother. Never saw him again after that day. I'll always regret it. Even if I hated him I think I was his only friend. Found a box of old drawings in my garage the other day. The deeper down in the box I looked, the more Dintan stuff I found. The old ones were mostly of me with a big black ball with eyes behind me. Later they became more detailed and the last one was of him right before he had disappeared. He was scrawny and looked old, sick and starved. Next to him I had written Dintan is angry because he is sad, because he is alone. Sometimes I wish I'd meet him again, invite him in for some coffee and just talk. I wonder where he's now.
Hide and seek with Furby Anon here. Let's begin green texting with what I remember. It was in November circa 2007-2008. I'm alone at home. Brothers are away, school trip and sleepover. Parents are out for until early momming. They rarely ever go out, so when they do go out they take their time. Grandma is supposed to come usually, but I'm a big girl now. LL. So I got to stay alone this night. Stupid 16-year-old me is super excited to be alone. Ah yes, late interwebs.jpg. Get tired of doing the usual crap I'm usually doing on the internet and begin to look for spooky stuff. Eventually find a Japanese-related spooky website. Look at the articles and eventually find the one-man hide and seek. Read it and get really interested. Was a quiet emo loser IRL but an edgy emo on the internet, and told my other emo friends on MySpace about how we're totally trying this to summon demons XD. They say they're going to do so, but it's all a bunch of bullshit and they made some stories up afterwards. So it begins. I gather all I need. The needle, the red thread, the rice. And move to the bathroom. Here comes the Furby part. Never really named it a precise name, so decide to name it Violet, for its lilac pastel fur. Painfully remove endoskeleton blah blah blah, stuff it with rice. Clip my fingernails and put them in, and put transparent wrap so it doesn't pour out eye, beak holes. Frickin' terrifying, but retarded past me think it's perfectly okay. While stitching the whole back I prickle my finger. Some droplets of blood on the Furby's fur. Don't think anything of it back then and just wrap the red string left around the Furby. Draw a bath. At this time it was somewhere between midnight and 1 a.m. Take a deep breath, scared but determined, think that nothing can truly happen and harm me. Oh boy, if I knew the thing I just got myself into. Do as the website said. Take a pair of sharp scissors I used for school and close my eyes. Continuing. Begin the ritual as said by saying, first Tagaris, my name, 3 times, eyes closed, and place it gently in the bathwater. Go out of the bathroom quickly and turn all the lights off on my way and turn on the television. While counting to 10, finally getting a channel that displays loud static, unlock doors and windows, but leaving it in a way so burglars don't come in and parents won't kill me for leaving them all open. Chills in my spine and already feeling uneasy. Of course I was scared. Goes back to the doll, nothing happened obviously. Take sharp scissors and says, I found you, 3 times, stabs it leaving the scissor in it. Close my eyes and say, now you are it, 3 times. Take the cup of saltwater and take the salt cup with me. Scared teenager.jpg. Dummy didn't think about where to hide directly and feel super scared, hide behind the desk, under it. Hands are shaking. Make a messy circle of salt and get in quickly, with my little saltwater cup and my Nokia phone. Also got a little sandwich with me and strawberry syrup in case I am hungry, thirsty. This sounds so stupid I know, but it made me feel safer for some reason. Continuing. Cannot hear anything. Mom's pet bird is silent. Pray it's not gonna get killed and took care of covering its cage before playing. Can only hear the ear-scratching static from TV. 10 minutes pass. Feeling drowsy but then notice something. Everything is dead silent. Not even static from TV. Not even wind. Absolutely nothing. Can only hear my heart thumping and my breath. Begins to feel real scared and uneasy. Hear the radio static turning on and get spooked for a second. Don't remember turning it to static earlier, but it's very possible that I left it on, low volume, and didn't realize. It must be like 1 or 2 a.m. by now, so maybe it's normal that I could hear static? Remain silent and listen closely. Through the static, can hear a song playing, don't really know which. Just like a normal song but with heavy static, messed up sound? I never regretted something that much in my whole life. Shaking like hell. Finally cannot hear song anymore. It cut back to loud static, TV or radio. I have no idea which. Maybe even both. Tears begin to stream down my face. Letting a quiet sob out without wanting to. Suddenly static seems to lower to almost complete silence the moment as that sob left my chest. Fucking terrified. Tears streaming down my face. Sweating in fear, heart thumping like hell. Dead silent again. Think that I'm about to die. Dead silence. But with some weird noise. There is no god.jpg. Begin to hear some noise. It's fucking breathing. Like some heavy breathing. Not really loud but heavy. Remain completely silent. Try to stop crying and make my breath as quiet as possible. My heart is beating like crazy. Sorry, also sorry for my English if I did any mistake. Not my mother language. Typing all this again makes me feel a knot in my stomach. I swear it's terrifying to even remember. Continuing. Footsteps continue, but what was weird was that it looked as if they were going round and round. Suddenly dead silence again. No static, not anything. Think about calling mom and dad or friend to pick Mo up and find the doll to burn it. Don't even care about getting grounded or yelled at. I just wanna get out there alive. Pick up my phone. As soon as I turn it on, I hear those interferences. Sounds like when you're about to get a message and you are near computer speakers or something like that. Shalno.pg. Quickly shut it down, praying not to get heard. Hear bird upstairs panicking for a moment for no reason. Feels helpless and think it's getting killed. Cry again. Cover my face and hugs my knees. Suddenly stayed in silence again. Just begin to feel dizzy and nauseous on top of that feeling of dread and fear. Hear distant clattering in the bathroom. Gradually fading to silence again. Now is what I think creeped me out the most of all and made me nearly go hysteria mode. Loud TV static again. When everything wasn't dead silent, I could hear static, but it wasn't always at the same volume. Sometimes it was low. Sometimes kinda loud or really loud when the radio first tummed on. Now if you ever saw the movie Poltergeist, remember when the little girl is trying to speak through the TV? That's all I could use to describe the sound, voice or thing I heard. Through the static I make out a voice, can't really understand what it's saying. Not even sure if it's English or French. Can't take it anymore and cover my ears with my hands, closing my eyes tightly. Crying and shaking in a fetal position. Tries to convince myself that it's all an electricity problem and that our TV is acting up. Hear a really loud ear-piercing sound. Everything felt cold. The temperature was still the same, but it just felt cold in a way I cannot explain, and the feeling of dread intensified more than ever. Can't remember anything after that. I blacked out. Maybe lost consciousness from the fear, exhaustion, still don't know today. Wake up to my parents around me super scared. Mom is yelling, "We need to call the hospital, we need to call the hospital." Dad is holding me. "Anon, what are you doing here? Why did you mess things in the house? What is going on? How did you did those wounds? What happened?" Can't say a word or really understand what's going on and just hug Dad tightly. Bury my face and cry my eyes out. Remember about the doll. It's still out there. Can barely walk or even get up. Get out of the room as fast as I can. Walking like Bambi doing his first steps. My parents following me wondering what the hell is happening. At that point I'm just not sane anymore. I can barely stand on my legs. I feel exhausted and that dread feeling is still there. Not as much but still there. Find that fucker Furby in the bathroom. The bathtub is empty. Disgusting strong metal odor. It's sitting inside those empty sockets looking right at me. Rice is pouring a bit out of the scissor wound. With the little forces I have, I pour the whole cup of cold salt water over it. Punch the rice out of it while shaking uncontrollably. Hurt myself with the needle that was in it somehow. Take the scissors sitting besides it and stab it repeatedly, screaming. I win 3 times and again and again. I am fucking hysteric at that point. I look at my bleeding hand and that's all I remember before blacking out again. Parents hold me, scream my name and stuff. They think I became legit insane, called hospital. Since I woke up there, once awake and sort of calmed down, reassured, I just explain everything. They look at me in disbelief, think it's all foolish teenager edge except for one doctor. Final part. Doctor stays alone with me and parents. Explains that kind of stuff is considered serious in his family where he comes from and stuff. He was Asian. Tells my parent that it seems crazy but to burn the doll so it's over and do a thing I don't remember well with IDK what exactly to soothe spirits BC. That's what his grandmother used to do to keep bad spirits away and calm them. Parents are astonished, barely believing it, and are mad at me for nearly killing myself and doing some dark evil, magic. Apologize in shame, explained I wanted to look cool and get grounded for a month. No internet. But they were so worried I still got 1 or 2 nice small presents for going better. Stay a while at the hospital to get mental exams. Really scared from the whole thing and get nightmares the entire first week. They gradually disappear. Asked to sleep with tiny light circle of salt. For some reasons I had tiny wounds. Scratches and bruises on my legs, face and hands, arms other than me hurting myself with the needle. Doctor tells me to never do that again and that I am lucky nothing worse happened. Tells me I angered spirits with my shit and that it could be dangerous, that I better never do any of that shit ever again. Super ashamed. Doctor was a bro and tells me we all do stupid crap when young. Came home a week later but shock, stayed for several months, would sleep with a light on circle of salt. I had to get therapy. Parents were mildly infuriated. But forgave me and we forgot about it a while after we moved out this damn house. Also amongst the weird stuff there was after that awful night. Objects in obscure places, paper balls from the trash scattered everywhere. Fishes from the fishbowl in the fireplace covered in ashes. Rip fishes, I am so sorry. Bird is okay except that mom told me he had a ash-covered hand, fingerprint on it when she found it out of his cage. But after that whole incident we moved and lived in peace, ever since. The end.
Hey/v/ don't ask me how I know because I cannot tell you, but I have it on good authority that Bigfoot will be undeniably proven to exist by the end of August. It's all over, he's real. How does that make you feel? Anyone currently a believer? Shut the fuck up, you fucking moron. Hey up, I screen captured this. I will be the one who calls you on your shit. Fuck you.
Man apparently attempting Bigfoot hoax killed on Montana Highway Tuesday, August 28, 2012 by Lori Grannis, Missoula, Montana, Reuters. A man wearing a bushy, military-style camouflage suit in an apparent attempt to impersonate the mythical creature Bigfoot has died after being struck on a Montana highway by two cars, police said on Tuesday. Randy Lee Tenley, 44, was dressed in a ghillie, an outfit favored by military snipers and game hunters, and standing in the middle of southbound lanes on U.S. Highway 93 near Kalispell on Sunday when he was struck twice in quick succession, Montana Highway Patrol spokesman Sergeant Steve Lavin said. From what I understand, at least one of his friends said that he was trying to induce a Sasquatch sighting by using the suit along the highway, Lavin said. This is a first for me after 20 years on the highway patrol. It's strange. Tenley was first hit by a car driven by a 15-year-old girl. 15-year-olds are allowed to drive in Montana with a learner's permit. A second car driven by a 17-year-old girl struck him moments later when he was already down on the roadway, Lavin said. Police said they do not know which impact killed him. Friends of Tenley told Montana Highway Patrol Trooper Jim Schneider that the man had attempted a similar hoax before, but never along the highway, police said.
I've got a lot of small ones, like gifts and whatnot. They leave me flowers, sometimes morel mushrooms, things I've lost, etc. I've been giving them about a third of my veggies, and they seem to like that. More and more show up in my yard, rather than my tree line, and only seem to move when they don't notice me there. They're very slow moving, and the only time I've ever seen them move quickly is when they roll. I have a lot more animals in my area now, and the forest and yard garden are much more lush and green when they are around. They seem to disappear during storms. I think they either go into tree hollows or patiently wait it out under other kinds of cover. The garden rock likes to go into a small covered trellis. I built it for when the rain comes. Never heard them speak, and have only seen their faces a few times. It's just an oblong rock with beady black eyes that look like polished black glass. Very spindly arms and legs, not bony looking but more vine-like. They tuck back onto the body and aren't noticeable. 4 toes and 3 fingers and a thumb. Bodies are shaped like a bullet, and they are about the size of a gallon jug. The garden rock is more round, though. Their head sits on the front of the body rather than on top, and kinda blends into it. The eyes are wide-spaced, almost parallel to each other, and about the size of small marble. They are covered in moss, and can range from green to a burgundy. I think that might indicate age, but I don't know. When they stand up and walk, they look hunched over, and they tend to waddle more than just walk with arms out like they're carrying something under them. There were a couple things left in the house, like some personal documents, mostly health records. Other than that, I know the guy came from Holland, and that he built the house when he came over in the 50s. None of his family wanted the land, they just seemed to want to make some quick cash. I did let them spread his ashes in the forest though, because that's where he spent most of his time, with his wife. Her ashes were also spread out here, according to their daughter. Seemed like a sweet old man. He liked wood crafting, and I find some of his stuff here and there in the basement and the shop. I left a figure out that he made on the porch, and the next day it was gone. Not sure if they took it, or if it was some other animal, vagrant passing through.
Everyone knew how it would play out. Some chemical spill maybe, or biotechnology gone wrong. Maybe even your good old-fashioned ancient curse. However it started, whatever got the zombie snowball rolling, everyone knew how it would play out. First, the epidemic. Millions upon millions of innocent lives would become transformed by the infectious bite of affected friends, loved ones, and in the end complete strangers. 95% of the world's human population would succumb to the outbreak. Next, amidst the undead terror a new human civilization would rise. Maybe a militant dictatorship, or an egalitarian state. Some post-apocalyptic remains of humanity would rise like a phoenix to reclaim its ashes. Finally, and most importantly, the zombie population would wane like the fading sunset, leaving naught but fields of destruction and a lesson well learned. Everyone knew this canon, which had been imprinted upon them since the early works of Romero and Fulci. Fiction became fact in a world that believed it was on the cusp of a gory battle for survival. It was so possible that everyone knew it had to be true. But everyone was wrong. Not about the overall picture, mind you, but rather the details. You see, the zombie apocalypse did come in 3 stages, but much earlier than expected, and much less conspicuously. First, the epidemic. Millions upon millions of average people became subdued by the apathy encompassing their unasserted lives. Friends who were not friends and loved ones who were in fact complete strangers dominated the psyche of each individual, in the end suppressing up to 95% of the identity in all but the most reclusive members of the human population. Next, amidst the living agony, a doctrine would become solidified: to fight is to surrender, to submit is to succeed. And so human civilization remained in complacent slavery to its own norms, crumbling into ashes as the planet burned around it. Finally, and most importantly, the zombie population suffocated in its own ignorance, blind to the fields of destruction left in its wake. No lesson was learned, as no one was left to learn. All that remained of humanity were the dusty bunkers and shelters stocked with unused ammunition, waiting for the apocalypse that had already come and passed.
Have 13-year-old sister, she's a Stacy-level normal fag, only game she plays is Skyrim, never see her play because of work, assume she has an op-level 80 character. Today, at home because my work contract expired last week, she comes into my room and asks if she can play, load the game up for her, look through her character sheet and inventory, notice her character is shit, level 6 with a basic steel sword, her only good skill is sneak, also notice her inventory is filled with generic clothes, rings and necklaces. She hasn't even started the main quest. The only thing of note is that her character is a vampire. Ask her WTF she's been doing this entire time. Doesn't respond. Looks through her book bag instead. Pulls at her laptop greater than opens a Word document. Okay Anon. Name a city in Skyrim. Riverwood, Anon. That's not a city, but okay. She fast travels into Riverwood. First NPC she runs into is Sigrid. She'll make a nice target. What? This is what I do Anon. I kill people in this game. For the next 2 hours she stalks Sigrid from the shadows. She's constantly typing notes in her laptop. She writes down where Sigrid is at a given time. She writes down who she talks to, what she talks about, and what chores she does. Eventually she predicts a time and location where Sigrid will be isolated. Tells me every other day at dawn Sigrid treks to the village outskirts to collect water. Her schedule for collecting water happens to overlap with a guard change, so Sigrid will be alone. Sigrid shows up as expected. Sister sneaks up behind her, waits an agonizing minute, and then kills her, loots Sigrid and takes her cloak, dumps Sigrid's corpse into the river, watches Sigrid's body floats away. MFW, I realize those generic garments and jewelry pieces in her inventory are mementos of her victims. Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Is my little sister going to be a serial killer when she grows up?
Sometimes, I like to create a Bosmer character identical in face and hairstyle to him. Then in the dead of night, pick his lock and enter his house, completely naked. I murder him, I take his clothes, and dispose of his corpse. The rest of the game is spent not taking quest, but traveling around Satan, simply being him. I sleep in his bed. I eat his food. I walk in the same aimless pattern he did. And I talk to his best friend, Aril. Though we maintain an air of friendly charter, I can see the uneasiness in his eyes. All the villagers. They know. They're watching me. I have passed 100+ game days doing this.
The NPC we awoke and listened to what they told us to say. We never needed to even pay attention. Our spatial positioning device orientates us on the rough direction we want to go. Sometimes there are enemies. We kill them. Sometimes we die. When we die, we awake with a spring in our step and run travel straight back to there. Sometimes we'd use teleporters to travel large distances. Sometimes even into completely other different locations. I knew he wasn't an enemy because he looked no threat at all to me. I spoke to him and I couldn't understand what he was saying. He spoke about a world I've never heard of. He sure is funny. The next day he looked like he might be dying. I spoke to him again, but he didn't tell me where to go. I need to either go to a location and get something and either bring to him or to another person. Or he needs me to kill something without dying. He sure is funny. How long can he keep talking like this? I ran off to kill a boss. And he was waiting there with me. He told me he's afraid to go to sleep. I never sleep. He must be one of those people. The dull ones. They only have a few short phrases that never amount to anything. After I killed the boss, he even walked in on my victory pose. If he doesn't get away from me, I'm going to kill him. He tells me I'm in a game. Of course I'm in a game. All of life is a game, isn't he stupid? At nighttime when those non-people go to bed, he's in the town screaming for help. Listen to me, I told him. Tell me where I need to go. I'll fucking find out where it is without the map. He asks me, what happens when I die? I told him I need to wait a little while and I come back. Sometimes I don't come back for a long time. He asks if I believe in other worlds. Other dimensions. Some of us believe in some stupid made-up lies that people who never come back, I said, because God stops playing their game. It keeps in stupid people in line. Doing their jobs. Standing around all day saying their few phrases and not running around and causing chaos everywhere. He tells me he's not from our world. A wise sage told him that if he sleeps he dies. In his world, every night when a person sleeps he is destroyed and born anew. In this world his form is failing and he is fighting the sleep. In my long sleep between lives I couldn't stop thinking about that man.
I am great. There was once a small boy who lived with his grandfather, in an old house at the foot of a mountain. His grandfather tended to a cemetery that was just a quarter mile or so up the road. It was fairly small and most of those buried there came from the small surrounding towns. The grandfather had always told his grandson to lock his room at night and never to go into his room, from the day that he moved out of his abusive father's house to live with him. The boy had listened without question, and it grew to be a part of his nightly routine. One day, the grandfather told the boy he would be home late, as he had more work to do than usual. Just as the sun was about to set, the boy walked to his grandfather's room, curious as to why he was never allowed in. He reached for the handle and after a firm twist, it opened. The room was full of all sorts of things the boy expected: a clock, a bed, a bookshelf, and a table. One thing caught his eye. On the table was a note. He walked over to it, and it read as follows: I have raised you for most of your life now, and you seem to be ready for the family job. I knew you would come in here, and I know you'll be a good boy. But my time is up. I hope to see you soon, and remember, this was underlined, to lock your door. Grandpa the boy was shocked and scared. He ran as fast as he could to the graveyard to see if his grandfather was there, but, to his dismay, there was only a fresh grave. Lying inside was his grandfather's body. Although it didn't appear that he had taken any physical harm, it was clear he was dead. Next to the grave was a shovel, and a pile of dirt, and the boy dutifully finished the burial. A sick feeling overwhelmed the boy as he walked back to his house. He walked into the house as the last rays of sunlight passed over the trees, and for the final time locked his grandfather's door. After picking up a glass of water and rereading his grandfather's note, the boy walked into his room and locked the door behind him. He laid awake late into the night, running through his head what could possibly his grandfather could have meant. He looked up into the black ceiling of the room, and noticed a noise outside slowly getting louder: thump thump, thump thump. He was a bit frightened by the noise, but dismissed it as a deer or maybe a bear. Such things could occasionally be heard around the house, so he laid on his side and tried to ignore it and get some sleep. Thump thump, thump thump. It was a bit louder this time. Now beginning to feel a cool sweat, he pulled a pillow over his ear. He tightly shut his eyes and tried to sleep. As if refusing to be ignored, the noise got tremendously loud, as if it were banging against the walls of his house. Thump thump, thump thump. The boy was extremely frightened but quickly tried to collect himself to look out his window and see if anything was outside. He got up and quivering peeked out the small glass. He saw nothing, and got back in bed. As if to affirm that nothing was there, the noise stopped. He curled up and closed his eyes, hoping for the sweet embrace of sleep. Then the sound of the front door handle shaking jolted him awake. His mind raced to earlier in that day, when, in a stupor, he had forgotten to lock the main door. The handle's shaking was replaced, on a dismal note, with the creaking of the door. Thump thump, thump thump. Something was walking through the halls. The boy hid under his covers, fighting hard to keep from shaking or making any noise. Another rattling noise came from somewhere in the house. The thing must have been trying to get into his grandfather's room. After a moment, the thumps got louder and closer as it gave up on his grandfather's door and made its way to his. For a moment, all there was silence. Then a raspy voice spoke from behind the boy's door. Are you old enough? The boy noticed he could hear its horrible breathing. It was so close. He laid quietly, too terrified to answer, and certainly not planning on speaking to whatever this was. I guess I'll just have to check. The boy's eyes opened wide and he began wishing he could wake up, as if this whole night was some horrible dream. His door handle began to turn and clicked immediately. The boy was slightly calmed by the fact it was still locked. Why won't you let me in? I just want to see if you're old enough. The handle shook for a moment. It was replaced moments after by a harder shake and then a violent shake and hysterical screaming, "Answer me." The boy began to fear he would break the door down and yelped him, "Old enough? My granddaddy told me I was old enough." The rattling stopped. The boy's heart pounded against his chest as he waited for a reply, or for anything to happen. Nothing happened for a few minutes. The boy was well beyond sleeping tonight though, and sat up awake and alert. "I don't believe you." The boy felt a tear fall down his face as he heard loud, awful scratching noises come from the door. Slow and deliberate, he could hear them going deeper into the door. Then, a long nail cut through a thin hole in the door and a white eye looked frantically through. It rested on the boy, sobbing in his bed. The grandfather was wrong.
Out with a bang, I've decided to kill myself. I think it's important someone understand why, so I'm making this video before I blow my head off. The first time I remember it happening I was 9. Johnny Weller and I were playing in his backyard. The sun was setting over his back fence, warm oranges and reds shining through the bone-white slats like a creamsicle against pearly white teeth. Johnny was the cowboy and I was the dirty redskin, stealing his horse. We ran around the swing set, him laughing and me whooping and threatening to scalp him. When he tripped, I ran to where he laid in the dirt, scooping up a handful of air, pointing my finger at his nose and proclaimed, "I got your gun now." Bang! Johnny's head exploded in a tremendous blossom of crimson blood, slate-gray brain and chips of skull that sparkled in the setting sun. My hand fell to my side, and I stared, open-mouthed, unable to understand what just happened. Someone was screaming. At first I thought it must be Johnny's mother, until she tore open the back door and I realized I was the one screaming. Johnny's mother crumpled against her son's headless body, adding her broken sobs to my horrified cries. Johnny's funeral was the next week, closed casket. I forgot the sparkling light shimmering across the cloud of Johnny's blood. I forgot Johnny's mother rag-dolling my little body, begging me to tell her what happened to her son. I forgot the sheriff telling my mother Johnny was hit by a falling bullet, one of 26 cases each year. I forgot my father's quiet talks with my mother about how they never found the round that spattered Johnny's smile across the grass. I adjusted. I coped. I forgot.
I didn't forget the next time it happened. I never played cowboys and Indians again. In fact, I can't remember a single instance of any shooting game played by little boys anywhere in my childhood. I do remember the little girl in the park, popping her little Nerf balls as she bounced around. She ran up to me, brandishing the weapon and shouting, "Hands up." I smiled and complied, dropping my sandwich in mock terror. I lifted my hands to the sky and petitioned for mercy. A true homicidal maniac in the making, she executed me with a flurry of staccato pops. I dutifully played dead, sprawling across my bench. She giggled and proclaimed, "Your turn. Shoot me." A sudden sensation of intense discomfort slithered up my spine. I thought of flowers, glittering crimson roses, wet with morning dew. She eyed me impatiently, apparently convinced she might have to nerf me once more to provoke a response. I lifted my finger weakly, pointed at her and whispered, "Bang." This time I wasn't the one screaming. Her mother cradled her baby's dismembered limbs, frantically clutching an arm, then a leg. I had pointed my finger at the little girl's belly button. The moment the word left my lips, she ruptured like a water balloon filled with punch and soaking bits of crimson-colored fruit. Johnny Weller's decapitated body filled my slow red of sunset sliding down the front of his striped shirt. I ran. I can't do this anymore. I got pissed at Laura yesterday and put my finger in her face to tell her off. I didn't even say it. I couldn't bring myself to sop my girlfriend's brains off the kitchen floor. I can't do this anymore. All I have to do is put my finger against my temple and say it. At least I'll go out with a bang.